Hi, Karen. Thanks for being a guest on my podcast.
Hi, Jody.
You know what,
Good to
Karen? It
be
was so
here.
fun to meet you. Yeah, I met you at a speaking engagement. You are a mentor mom at a group where I was speaking to the moms, like a group of young moms. And
Yes.
you came up to me at the end and just shared with me how you became a mom and your beautiful adoption story. And it is so powerful that I was like, Karen, would you like to come on the podcast and share this story? And so I'm glad you're here. And Mother's Day is just around the corner. And for many women with, walking through infertility and this is a hard day. So I'm excited to have you share your story of how God blessed you to be a mom. Now you have two sons, and let's start with the story of adopting Timothy.
Okay. My husband Ernie and I, we met in high school, and as teens, we dreamed about having a big family because Ernie came from a big family. I did not, but I was all in. So we thought we would marry the summer of '74 when I graduated, but that didn't happen. It was not God's plan for me. And now I know I would have never made it through the journey of infertility as a young person. It was hard enough in my middle 30s. So we married in '84, and I came home from work in '86 wanting to start a family right away. Not that we had done anything to prevent things at that point, but and it wasn't happening. So
Mm,
altogether, infertility was about 5 years.
wow.
Um, we did all the stuff. We were in a great Sunday school class at church called Young Family Fellowship, and the pastor and his wife were mentoring us well, and they had pulled aside a smaller group of couples who were dealing with infertility and gave us extra care and attention.
And I love that.
And there was a point where it seemed like either they had conceived or they had adoption stories, but not for us yet. And I was beginning to feel like God had forgotten me. Um,
Mm,
but that wasn't true. Even though he had taught me, what was that verse, Psalm 113, about he makes the barren woman a keeper of the home and a joyful mother of children. And I tried to hang on to that truth, but when the people around me were having kids and I wasn't, the the moms in the infertility group, but it got hard. One day in church, it was August of '84. We were in our Sunday school class that was about 200 people plus. I was sitting at the back of the room by myself. I didn't even sit with my husband that day because I was just so heavy-hearted and just totally feeling like God had forgotten me. But class was
mm,
over, and a woman named Roxanne came and knelt at my feet and said,
oh,
Karen, my name's Roxanne, and you don't know me, but my mom is serves at a crisis pregnancy center in Reno, Nevada, and she's ministering to a young woman right now who's having her third baby, and she's not married, and she wants this child to go to a Christian couple who can't have kids. And
wow.
and I thought of you, and of course I began crying. I'm sure Roxanne had other things to say, but
That's all
because
you heard.
I heard God
Yeah,
God was there and proving to me that He hadn't forgotten me. He was just waiting for the best for us.
I
And
love that. You know what?
so,
Let's stop real quick before you go on because I think that emotion of feeling forgotten is something that a lot of people feel, especially when you're praying and your prayer's not getting
mm,
answered in the way you would like. And then you're in a group and other people are getting the answer to the prayer. And next thing you're like, God, why is everyone else and not me? And so I love that you shared that part of the story because someone's listening right now and that's where they're at. And they're
yeah,
also feeling forgotten. And I love that at that exact moment where you're like, God, have you forgotten me? Is when Roxanne entered the picture and the Lord's like, just wait, I have perfect timing.
mhm,
But it required some patience, but it's so hard when we are in that season. And I
mhm,
haven't actually walked through infertility, but even just with my divorce, sometimes feeling forgotten and just waiting for that perfect time that the Lord was going to bring that Christian man into my life years later. So I think
right.
a lot of people listening that maybe infertility is not their story, this feeling of forgotten,
Mhm,
feeling like, God, where are you? Why haven't you answered my prayer? I think is something common that we can understand. And so I'm thankful that that moment where you were feeling it is when the story Roxanne came into the picture. Okay, so pick up the story. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay. That's okay. And looking back, I couldn't see it in the moment my prayer with God too was that He would bring a baby to us versus us,
Mm.
because we tried, sending out those letters and doing those different things that you can do to drum up business is the phrase that comes to
Yeah,
mind, and
yeah, yeah.
that's not,
I know
not
what
a
you
very
mean.
sweet
To
phrase. But
have
my
someone pick your
deepest,
letter. Yeah.
yeah, deepest heart's desire is that God would bring a baby to us, so we knew it was from Him. So at that point became important to me to for the birth mom to meet us in person. So I think it might have just been 2 weekends later, was Labor Day weekend. Roxanne and her husband Tim and Ernie and I, we drove to Reno together. We stayed at Roxanne's grandma's house so we could meet
Mm.
the birth mom and so she could meet us, most importantly. And so we did. We met Peggy and she said, "Yes, I want you to have my baby." I believe she knew she was having a boy at that point. Um, and and home we went. And now it still wasn't easy because we had to trust God in the waiting. She had 4 months to go in her pregnancy, and anything could happen. Um,
Right.
the second great gift that God gave us in Timothy's story is his birth mom developed gestational diabetes, so that allowed her doctor chose the date that he was going to deliver the baby, and she invited us to be in the birthing room.
Oh, that's
So it was
amazing.
pretty amazing. I didn't realize it then. I had to get beyond that day to step back and see that we experienced two miracles that day. The miracle of new life arriving and the miracle of a woman giving her baby to another woman. So
Mm,
pretty
beautiful.
powerful stuff. And I have a dear friend that's a professional artist, and she did our birth announcements. And it's me holding the baby, holding Timothy, Ernie's looking over my shoulder, and she drew this from a photo, and I'm holding someone else's hand. And everyone thought
Oh,
it was the hand of God, but it was Peggy's hand in there. So
oh, that's so beautiful.
yeah, and it was important for me that she had the opportunity to give her gift. I didn't want, someone else taking her baby and then giving it to me, but yeah.
That's
So it was
powerful.
a beautiful, amazing day.
I just love that the birth mom was holding your hand in that picture, and you got to speak to Nurture, the group that I spoke to at daytime. You spoke to the nighttime group and shared your story of adoption. And you sent me the notes of what you wrote, and you talk about the birth mom, the important role, and just it was beautiful what you said. I would love for you, if you don't mind reading what you said, because I think that the relationship that you had with the birth mom was beautiful, and these words you said were powerful. Can you read them to us?
Yes. I have raised our sons telling them that their birth moms were courageous women who loved them so much. They loved sacrificially and wanted the best life for them. Their birth moms gave what we could not give them, and now we give what their birth moms could not give. God has brought me to believe, whether a birth mom realizes it or not, that she is empowered by God when she gives the child she birthed to another woman to love as her own. Amazing goodness from God.
Oh, I'm gonna go cheer up over here. It's so good. Karen, I love that. And so thank you for honoring birth moms so well. That's really powerful. So I love that she was holding your hand. And so there's your story. You got to bring Timothy home. That
Right.
must have been so amazing. Wasn't that right before Christmas? Is that
Yes,
correct?
it was Christmas Eve when we came home. So,
Oh, what a beautiful Christmas gift. And so I love that. And I love how God showed up when you were feeling like he had forgotten you by bringing a woman to say, I have a woman that is looking for a Christian couple, and like you had prayed for. So I love how you wanted God to bring the baby to you. And that's what happened through Roxanne's connection with her mom at the birthing facility. So God is just so good. And so I know that someone's encouraged right now by hearing this story. And so the story's not over, y'all. This is what's so powerful is there's part two because she has two sons. So I would love for you to now tell a little bit about how Patrick became a part of your story. And I love that God met you again in a desire for a second child. Will you tell us a little bit more? I think there's a big age gap, correct? 4 years or
right,
5 years?
there's 8 years
Oh,
between the
8 years.
boys. So, I had had a miscarriage in between there, and there were a couple of other adoptions out of country that we were pursuing in between that didn't work. But but we know why now. Um,
Yeah.
Ernie and I had just finished, because now I'm 40. and worried that, a birth mom's not going to choose me because I've gotten too old. So we've gone to the county to go through their program to do foster adopt. And in taking their classes, we discovered that children become hard to place at 3 years old. And that just broke my heart
Mm.
because preschool's my favorite season. So I was like, okay, God, I'll take a 3 year old, a little girl, please, and we're good to go. And so we finished everything. It was October of 89. Social worker had called and said, I have a little girl for you. Her name is Amber. She's 2, and I promise she'll be in your home by
Oh,
Christmas. And so we
wow.
were ecstatic. But just a few days later, on November 3rd, there was a woman who entered a hospital in Buena Park saying, I'm pregnant, but I can't go home with this baby. And so
Mm.
my friend Mary from church was a nurse at that hospital, and she was 10 minutes late leaving work that day. And she's like, "Oh, I know the perfect people. Ernie and Karen, they just finished everything, their home study and everything." So she went to the social worker at the hospital and told her about Ernie and I. And and then the search began. I had to be found. I was hanging wallpaper at my best friend's house. So Ernie
That's
found
funny.
me, and off to the hospital we went. And as I was leaving, my friend said, Karen, don't hold that baby boy, because if you want that little girl and you hold
Mm.
that baby boy, you're going to fall in love with him. But my heart was just breaking thinking about a baby boy that didn't have anyone to hold him. And so
Mm.
that was Patrick. We met his
Oh.
birth mom that day, and she shared part of her heart story. Patrick was conceived in a marriage where Timothy's was your typical circumstances, unmarried mom. Um, so Patrick had 3 full siblings, but dad had abandoned the family and left mom with a 6 year old, a 4 year old. So the first 2 were boys and then a 2 year old daughter, and they lost their apartment. So now they're living in a hotel room. She works full
Oh.
time. She's going to college, and she just doesn't have the capacity for one more child. And she knew
Yeah.
whatever she was carrying, she already had. So, and we come to learn God had protected Patrick in the womb twice because she thought abortion at 5 months was the answer to this difficult situation. And she didn't have prenatal care and such, so things didn't work out for insurance to cover the procedure. So she let go of that idea and carried the baby to term, but she had to have emergency C-section because the cord was wrapped around Patrick's neck. So God
Mm.
intervened a second time to make sure this baby arrived,
I love that.
and we brought him home the next day. So
It's
yeah,
amazing.
again, and the most special detail about that Patrick's story in my mind is November 3rd when Ernie put Timothy to bed and was doing devotions. The devotion was an adoption story, and the scripture that went with it was the one that says, My ways are not your ways, my thoughts are higher than yours. And Ernie came to me saying, Karen, I think this is what God's calling us to do. Where at that point, I wanted both. I wanted that baby, new baby boy, and I wanted that little 2 year old girl. But
Mm.
the county wouldn't allow us to operate that way. Um, so, but now I know God's plan was for us to have Patrick.
I
So,
love that. I love
yeah,
that so much. And you know what? I just love that God protected Patrick because you said
mm,
the woman had planned to abort the baby, but
right.
because of financially insurance things that didn't happen. And then my parents told me the cord was wrapped around my neck. And again, was born in 75. And so, they didn't have all the tech they have now, but the doctor was really wise and kept noticing that the heartbeat of me would stop when my mom would push. And so he raced my mom into emergency C-section, which again,
Uh,
they didn't do that back then and
right.
saved my life. And my dad said he never prayed so much for me during that time my mom was in surgery. But you know what? So I really connected to that he was saved a second time with the cord being wrapped around his neck and they did a C-section. So it's a powerful powerful way. The Lord wanted Patrick to enter the world, and He wanted him to be your son, which is even
Mhm.
more beautiful. And so, I think this conversation, what my hope is that someone listening right now sees that, like you said, that verse, sometimes God's ways are not our ways. And
Right.
if they're stuck in though I don't know why God's having me go through this, whether it's miscarriage after miscarriage or just infertility, there's no, um, the pregnancy test keeps saying negative, or whatever the circumstance is, and their desires to be a mom and it's not happening. I just want them to hear this story because, Karen, you became a mom in the most beautiful way. And I love you have these truths. Again, when you spoke to these women, you wrote out a little thing, and one of them says, truths I needed to learn during the journey to add children to our family. And I love it so much. I'm going to share it on the blog when your episode releases, but I just wanted to share a couple of them here. And one is, well, I'll let you share the first one. What's the first one? To me, this is so good for someone that's in this place right now. This is something they need to hear.
Um, the first thing that Ernie and I needed to learn, and I can still picture that day in Sunday school when the pastor was teaching, was that two is a family. God tells us two are better than one. And and so we needed to learn to define family the way God did. It was hard at first, but this truth became a great comfort that we weren't less than in God's eyes because there weren't children. He, had brought us together and he had plans that
I
we
love
didn't know
that so
about yet.
much. Yeah, that's so good. Why don't you just read a couple of them off there? What do you have a favorite one? They all are so good, but I'd love for you to read some of them.
Well, the hardest one probably to learn was that God's in control of all things, including conception, because of course, as a new married couple, you think you can control that. But um,
Mm,
I love the fact of seeing that full perspective of that all babies are a gift from God, no matter the circumstances of their conception or how they arrive in your heart and home. Because of course, in my time frame, I had a friend whose teenage daughter just I graduated high school became pregnant, and it's like, Lord, why her and not me? And
oh, that's
and
so
it's like,
hard. Yeah.
Karen, it's not your decision who I give babies to. And I can't remember the other couple that I was thinking about, but I again remember saying, God, why them and not me? They weren't married. And he's like, Karen, they don't know me. And that's when it hit me. Oh my God. Well, that's not true. After experiencing Timothy's birth on the other side that women usually don't get to view it from, and to realize what a miracle that is. And it's God being present. This is only God can give a baby. It's like that's when I realized, okay, God allows non-married people to have kids because He wants them to recognize Him and what a gift
Yes.
that their children are. So,
Let me ask you
and
something real quick before we jump ahead to the next one. Let's go back to when you found out someone else got pregnant. Because I remember, okay, so I'm going to share something real vulnerable that I think I've shared one other time on the podcast, but I had lost a baby and there were four other friends of mine that were pregnant at the same time. And I
oh,
hate to say it, but I thought, God, why'd you take my baby and not theirs? Just kind of like
mhm,
you're saying, why did she get
right,
pregnant, not you? And it's a horrible thought to say. Like, I don't wish anyone of those four friends lost their baby. But
mhm,
in my heart, I'm like, wait a minute, how come I'm the one that lost the baby? Right. And so I think
right,
these thoughts, people have them. So let's put them out there. You're not a horrible person to have that thought. It's
no,
called grief. You're grieving the loss of your child. You're grieving the loss of this hope and dream of having a baby. And it's like, why does she have a baby? She doesn't want the baby. She didn't want to be pregnant. I want to be pregnant, but God, why? And so I think it's so good that you bringing up these whys because we're having the thoughts and no one's talking about them because
right.
it feels shameful to think that way, but it's the truth. It's how we feel, right? So how did you work through that? I know obviously once you had your baby and you saw it was a gift, but did someone speak some truth into you or did you go to God and just, do you remember? I know it's years ago, but I would love to, like, someone that's listening right now is going, I'm thinking the same thing. How do I get past this? Or maybe if there's something that helped you with just the overall feeling the forgottenness or feeling like, why God, why not me? Those thoughts that we
Right.
have.
Um, oh, I'm not, well, I too have gone through a miscarriage. Timothy was 3 and
Yes, that's
um
right.
and had been praying for a baby sister. And so it's like, and I was stunned when I went to the doctor and he said, you're 6 weeks. And I said, 6 weeks, what? And he's like, pregnant. And it's like, and at that point we thought, I couldn't get pregnant. I found out through what's the exploratory surgery they do. I have a introvert, no, my uterus was tipped forward, so it would make hard for fertilization to happen. But and then also Ernie and I didn't know, not until my miscarriage did I find out I was Rh negative. So we didn't, and he's positive.
Wow.
We didn't know those things ahead of time either. But there's uh, a place in Arkansas that's the artist that did all the Precious Moments figurines, Sam something. Anyway, it's little chapel, and there's this large painting on the front of the chapel, kind of replicating the Sistine Chapel, and you see these babies crawling to their moms and dads that have entered heaven, and so
Oh,
that was a powerful experience for me because it's like my baby girl's in heaven. I had to learn life begins at conception based on the words, the biblical words in the original Greek language. And so it's like, so my little girl's name is Laura
mm,
Ann, and she makes heaven real for me. And
yeah.
the longing in my heart to know her someday when I get there. Um,
Yes. Maybe
no,
she's
that's
playing
it.
with my baby Grace,
Yes,
right? Wouldn't that be
yes,
sweet if they were friends up there? It's kind of a
yes,
beautiful thought to think, right? That we're going to
yes,
get to see them someday and
mhm,
hold them. And I love
yes.
that you brought that up. Yeah. So keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had
No,
that thought.
no. So that was a powerful moment for me to be in that place and see that painting and see how it related to my story. But and the other thing that God did for me was to learn, I had to learn that truth that says, weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. So when
Yes.
not knowing the joy that would come for me when I became obedient and was able to rejoice with other people at their baby showers, I rejoiced by giving baby showers, thinking I was doing something to please God and not realizing the joy, the blessing that He had for me. So that really helped too, to care for other people's children when they needed to work or go to a doctor's appointment or whatever. And I still do that, still care for other people's. I've homeschooled a single mom friend from church, her seventh grade daughter this week because of some difficulties on campus, and she has to do school off of campus for a couple of weeks. So, yes, so I've learned to take joy in other people's kids, and that's helped fill my heartache and
That's
through this whole
beautiful.
journey of infertility. And now I'm kind of in the same place waiting for grandkids, and it's not happening because I have two sons who aren't married. So
Yes.
I'm
So
loving
it
on other people's grandkids,
yeah, I love the perspective because I think we can get so focused on where we're at, which is not bad. Like when you're in grief, you have to focus on where you're at. You have to let yourself feel. You have to let yourself heal. But if we stay stuck there and only me,
Right.
then it's like I love how you turned it and said, I'm going to love on this person's daughter. I'm going to throw a baby shower, which, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine how hard that was to do that in the middle of your infertility is to, purposely enter into someone else's joy of having a baby when that was such a desire of your heart. Like to me, that is a beautiful gift you gave. And I love that the Lord honored that obedience, but I'm sure it was challenging. And Mother's Day as well, it sounds like you just loved on other people's kids. I remember having holidays where I didn't have my kids because of the divorce. And so what did I do? I would go volunteer at church and love on someone else's kids. And I think
Hmm.
that's a beautiful way to say it, but it doesn't mean the pain didn't go away or it didn't hurt, but it's
No.
just a way to kind of flip the script. But tell me a little bit about other people. Did other people come alongside and support you? Did some people say things that were encouraging? Like if someone, Mother's Day is just around the corner, if we know this is someone's road they're walking, infertility, what could we do to come support them? Like, did someone do something that was helpful for you, or um, I'm just curious. Or did someone say something that we should avoid? Like, don't say that, like that's a for sure don't say.
Oh, It's interesting because I don't remember hurtful things said before having babies, but there was a couple of times after, and it was from my church family of all people. But Timothy was 1.5, and someone at church was having a Valentine's party for moms and kids. And so I was a little late getting there. And so as I'm walking across the front room, someone from the other side of the room said out loud, "How did you get a baby that looks like you?" And I was just
Oh my gosh.
stunned.
Wow, that's so
And
hurtful.
my son is in my arms. And but God quickly gave me words. And I said, from the same place you did, God.
That's
Like, why
beautiful.
can't my baby look like me? That's
Yes.
not too hard for God. So,
I
and then
love that.
one time with Patrick, it was he was from church, but he was the brother-in-law to a neighbor, and he's like, "Oh, if people can look like their dogs, I guess adopted kids can look like their adopted parents."
If people can look like their dogs. I love that. Well, you know what? I
No,
think that sometimes people don't know what to say if
right,
things aren't
right.
how they thought
Hmm.
it should happen. But
Hmm.
here's what's beautiful. The Lord was like you said, in control over when
Right.
that baby was to enter your home, whether it was through you conceiving or you receiving from a beautiful birth mom that said, I can't
Hmm.
do it. And we already talked about how special that gift is that they gave. And so that is so insensitive. I am so sorry that that woman in front of everyone too. I mean, even privately that'd be embarrassing, but in front
Right.
of everyone, you handle it with such grace, Karen. But I would say, you know, it doesn't matter the how
Mhm.
we became a mom. And if someone's listening right now and they feel like, well, it's nothing's less than you're a mom, whether you conceived the baby, whether you're
Right.
fostering the baby, whether you've adopted the baby, whether you're a stepmom. I mean, there's so many ways God makes us
Right.
moms. And none of that matters. Or maybe you're just mother pour into kids and you're one of those spiritual mothers, right? There's so
Hmm.
many ways we come along. So I love that we can honor that. Mother's Day is honoring that way you're a
Right.
mom,
Right.
whatever the way God made it. And so would you have any words of wisdom for someone though that's going through infertility? Any other last words to say to them that something that helped you? I know you've got your list. Is there something more on that list? I didn't mean for us to stop going through it.
I know that the last point I put was letting go and letting God have his way. I can truly say on this side of the journey and the pain that I wouldn't trade my story um,
Oh, I
for
love that.
for anything. Today in my devotion time, I read a quote from the author that said, "Pain is the portal through which we must pass to experience spiritual power." So just
Wow.
today, it was even sweet to look back and say, contemplating talking with you today, um, how God has grown me through this journey of infertility and adoption. And I love my boys.
I love that.
And now I have three. I have a bonus son. So, um, as Patrick
Yeah.
has connected with his birth siblings, well, the oldest one, whose name is also Patrick. So we have two Patricks in our life right now, and Patrick has a
Well,
stepdaughter that I get to love on, and his wife calls me her mother-in-law.
I love
So,
that. So
yeah,
God's still expanding your
yes,
motherly
yes,
reach, in a beautiful
yes.
way. Yeah. But I love what you just said. I wouldn't trade it. Like
Mhm.
that is a beautiful thing. I wouldn't trade it anyway. God knew what was the best plan for you. And even in the middle of it, when you didn't understand, that didn't mean that
Right,
God's plan wasn't good. It's just
right,
we don't understand why we have to go through hard things. But that's the whole reason why I wrote my book, Depth, Growing Through Heartbreak to Strength. Because what if that greatest heartbreak you're going through, whether that's infertility or divorce like me or whatever it is, miscarriage, and what if that's what's going to catapult you to your greatest growth with the Lord? And
right.
that's what
Hmm.
happened. That's what you just shared with
Hmm.
that other quote.
Yeah,
Like I was over here going, oh, I don't even know if she realizes that's my message. That's my message of, we don't understand always the why, but I know he
mhm.
never wastes any of the
Right,
tears, any of the hurt. None of that is wasted in the Lord's plans. He redeems it. And you coming on and sharing today is giving hope to someone else. And you know what? Fast forward many years down the road in that person's life, who knows what their story will look like? And they're going to come
hmm,
along now and help someone else. And that's the beautiful thing about how our hurting hearts help others that are going through pain. Because you probably can enter into a place where I couldn't, talking to someone that's walking through infertility, where I don't have that as my part of my story. It was just I didn't have problems getting pregnant. I did lose a baby, but it wasn't the same, right?
Hmm.
So you can enter someone's story in a way that I can't. So I just think sometimes we just, again, does that mean we want it to happen to us? No, but God
No,
brings purpose to it. And so
right.
I love that He brought purpose to you, your story in a powerful way. And these 8 statements will be on the blog if you guys want to check them out. They're so good. There's community, talking about community and Christian community and so many things that we could focus on. But I want to end with my favorite question to ask on the podcast, which is books. Is there a book or besides the Bible? Oh, you're laughing. I love it. That means it's good. That has impacted your life, maybe even with grief or infertility or just in general. Like, what's your life changing book besides the Bible? I could tell it's going
Well,
to be good.
I don't I don't know how life-changing, but my favorite book for infertility was Taste of Tears, Touch of God. And it's Anne
Ooh,
Kimmel Anderson, and it's old. It's probably from the 70s. And
that's
then,
okay.
but she was adoptive mom, and she has a couple of adoption books, but my favorite is And with the Gift Came Laughter, because
Oh,
I,
is that the title? And with the gift
yeah,
came
uh-huh,
laughter.
and with the gift came
That's
laughter. Yeah. And
that's a
I've,
beautiful title. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah, because Patrick definitely brought lots of laughter to our home and energy. He was my athlete.
I
So
love
he loves to hear
it.
stories of how he was throwing things overhand at 8 months old. But
Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
so
I
yeah.
love that title. I love the joy that you
Yes.
have. And I love that you said I wouldn't trade my story. That to me is just
Mhm.
such a beautiful way to just, you know what? You became a mom in a really beautiful way. Like the
Mhm.
Lord's hands
Yeah.
are the fingerprints of God are in your
Right.
story, Karen. And we
Totally.
can't all say that maybe with if we conceived our baby, that's not always maybe that we obviously God is still the one that
Right.
conceived the
Mhm.
baby, but we don't maybe see the fingerprints of the Lord like you did. Like that's why I loved when you shared that day with me. I'll never forget it, standing in that room with you and you came up and you said, I want to tell you something. I was just like, we have got to talk again. Remember, I got your number and I
Right.
was like, and I'm so glad that you came on and shared today. And I'm glad that you shared to the women at the Nighttime Nurtured because your story is powerful and it's because God's hands are all over it. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on to share. And hopefully, this encouraged someone else that's walking through the hard road of infertility as well.
Thank you, Jody.